All right, I think most of us are here. Deborah is 8:59. Get started.
Okay, I'll do roll call. Ring is excused. Lau,
Here.
Byram,
Here.
he looks like he's connecting. He's here. Castillo,
Here, I'm on.
great, thank you. Singh,
Yes.
Star.
Here.
And Hurt.
Here.
All right, so do we have any residents forum?
Yes, we do. We have two speakers in
Hold on, I am sorry.
the minutes.
Let's approve the minutes. And here none, no comment, the minute is approved.
Okay.
All right, resident forum.
All right, so I'm going to read the guidelines here. Residents have up to 2 minutes to address the committee. The committee does not directly answer questions posed by speakers during the residents forum, but it does hear the viewpoints and ideas presented, and members do consider them as they act during the meeting. Speakers must conduct themselves with proper decorum consistent with community standards that would not be offensive to a reasonable person as determined at the sole discretion of the GRF board. Participants may not engage in personal attacks, threats of any kind, or any other disruptive behavior. Speakers violating these rules may be expelled from the meeting and precluded from speaking at future meetings as determined by the board. If you have any handouts, in addition to the form slip that you handed to me, feel free to give those to me. Those wanting to speak over Zoom, which I don't see anyone, you can do the raise hand feature or the Q&A chat feature. When you're called upon, the in-person individuals, if you could sit or stand right here so we can get you on the ceiling microphone, state your full name and Rossmore address. And to begin, we have the first speaker, Melanie Rose, if you'd be so kind as to come on up to the table.
Thank you. Good morning. Melanie Rose, 2000 Pine Knoll, Unit 4. Back in October, 4 months ago, I came to this committee for help. As the Golden Rain Foundation, you are the owners of a product, a property management company which you sell to over 20 mutuals. This product continues to fail. I am asking again to please hire a consultant to evaluate your property management product. Up until 2 days ago, First Walnut Creek Mutual had been a suspended corporation for 9 months. The proper steps were not taken to have the corporation revived. This was not California bureaucracy, but rather mismanagement. We lost a landscape grant due to that suspension. Given the suspension, I asked for confirmed proof our taxes were filed and associated financials. For over 6 months and ongoing, these requests continue to be ignored. As it turns out, First Walnut Creek Mutual did need to refile its taxes. Also to note, Fifth Mutual and Mutual 50 are also suspended. Our 2023 audit is on track to also be a year overdue, just as the 2022 audit, which doesn't bode well for the 2024 audit. The list goes on. 4 months ago, I came to you asking for help. Now I am asking why you will not help. Why will you not have a review of your property management arm? For those of you also on the marketing committee, a community is only as good as its property manager. Given what I've shared, would you buy into this community? Will you tell those looking to buy what they can really expect? Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next, we have Carol, please, Cerrone. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Carol Cerrone, and I live at 2528 Ptarmigan Drive, number 3. I'm proud to say that I'm the president of the Rossmore Pickleball Club. And what I do want to say to you all is a thank you for the education that I've received every time I come to these meetings, which has been frequently. I have learned that fact-based knowledge, decision-making is so important. And I would encourage that all of the public come and see how you operate, because it makes such a difference when people know that all the decisions you make are fact-based. There are so many rumors and misinformation that floats around Rossmore. I think that when people understand the facts, perhaps, hopefully they will change my mind. I have changed my mind on many projects, not pickleball, but all the others that you've talked about. And I have found that you've opened my eyes. So I just want to say thank you for that. And actually, I'm enjoying coming to these meetings. So you may see me more and more. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, double checking the Zoom. Any changes? Nope, that concludes our residents forum.
Thank you. Okay, so Jeff?
Thank you. So 2 quick items. Today we have a town hall at 1 o'clock over at the event center, and that will be to review the food and beverage study. We will have our consultants from Synergy Consultants there to present their initial findings, and we'll be updating the community on our progress. And then on March 3rd, we will have a town hall on the pickleball project. We have been receiving a lot of emails and advanced questions on that, which we have requested. And the majority of those questions have to do with the funding of the project and how we are paying for that and how it will impact potential coupons or other projects. So we will be addressing all of those questions at that meeting. So we encourage people to come to the March 3rd town hall at 11. We did have a meeting with the neighborhood, so all of the residents that kind of surround the proposed site a few weeks ago. And at that meeting, we reviewed the sound studies, the design, and how the project may impact the neighborhoods more specifically. So we'll still touch on that at the town hall, but we kind of took that step already. The town hall will focus a little bit more on the community-wide impact and funding for the project. So 2 town halls, hopefully we'll see people today at 1 o'clock and then on March 3rd at 11 o'clock, all at the event center. So.
Any questions for Jeff? Okay, moving up way along then. I seem to lost my agenda here.
Use the paper one.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Okay, so, anyway, okay, Todd, finance report.
Yeah, so as everyone on this committee knows, when I reported last week, we've been obviously deep into the implementation of NetSuite. And so what I addressed here is just a letter basically stating that, there's a couple things that I feel are very imperative to what we're doing with NetSuite. One is that we need to be focused, and obviously we're sitting here on the GRF Finance Committee, but it's paramount that we focus on the mutuals, given the compliance issues. They are our #1 customer, right? So when it comes to what I have to do from a deliverable standpoint, it's super critical that we address getting the financials out for the 5,500 statutes and really focus on some of that as our primary objective. As we talked last month in terms of improving the monthly year-end close for GRF's financials, right? We are not under any restrictions in terms of internal financial reporting in terms of timing. That doesn't mean we don't want to get off timing. But as we look at our producing of year-end financials, those numbers are certainly very, very important to this organization, very important to look at. But as we talked last month, they have, just so everyone knows, the historical pattern has been we've never closed November because we don't have a board meeting in December, and they close both months then in the beginning of the year. And as I spoke last month that we are wanting to actually wait on trying to rush those because of one, truly limited staffing. I think everyone also has heard by this point in time that Bud Baxter's also decided to retire off my team. So obviously that leaves another hole in my staff. No excuse there, but the reality is of legacy Gen Arc understanding and legacy knowledge, it's tough it's not like something you can just go out and hire. So if we try to put my limited resources and where I focus my limited resources, to that end for GRF, Mechanics Bank, obviously from our internal audit process, they have given us some leeway knowing what we're going through. They see the advantages of it. they have pushed off our audit requirements from April 30th to June 30th for this year. So we have some relief in terms of when we actually have to have audited financials. That also allows us to focus on getting all the mutual audits done on time this year and not have the delay we've had last year. So really my report today is just hang in there. We're gonna get it all done. But we are trying to focus my resources accordingly, which is that customer service mutual side most importantly. So, and you know, our year-end numbers, we're still adding accruals. We'll still be finishing the GRF financials. So when they come, you know, they're just gonna be a better deck. Certainly doesn't mean we don't want to produce them. There's no shortcut to trying to close November 1st because it's all the same process. We close both months together. So obviously on the agenda, everyone has my actual letter that I wrote, but I think it's just, how do I focus my limited resource to get through this hump? We have to get through the implementation and have NetSuite being able to produce financials as soon as we possibly can. And that's where all of our energy is going to. So it's kind of my report today.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Adrian?
So Todd, I appreciate the,
Hold on one second. Hold on one second.
We gotta up your volume, Adrian.
Yeah.
oh, better. I appreciate the difficulties and the challenges of what you're doing. But what assurance do we have that there's nothing going wrong at all in our cash position or anything of that sort without seeing any report?
Well, I think, so we can, to Adrian, to your question, you know, just like I sent out a letter regarding to the mutuals, we can certainly are going to be able to augment with interim current cash balances, bank statement and cash positions, but we will circulate to everybody. So we will still maintain to, as you know, I agree with you that, you know, looking at the cash is super critical. You know, if there is one piece of information that someone is truly looking for that is a decision-based decision, you know, we can certainly go and focus on what is it they need from, you know, either last year or where we currently stand. I mean, I can generate, registers and general ledger reports. It's just not close. I don't have complete financials because they're going to change. But we can certainly focus on cash position at GRF, certainly show you cash balances. Certainly we have all the banks. You just don't have the internal close done on the year end or January.
Well, that would certainly be helpful to see that. You know, some sort of cash balance statement so that we, you know, we're assured that things are, you know, the way they're supposed to be.
Yeah. So I totally agree with you. I also, just in my defense, right, this organization's never had a cash flow, right? So obviously looking at bank balance is very critical, but what we're actually trying to achieve is absolutely more accurate, more insightful information, which when we get to the NetSuite update this morning, I'm going to share some stuff with you. So, you know, so those are all super critical. And in the meantime, we're trying to figure out what an interim deck will look like just so we can get there. And we're talking about, you know, a 6-week total problem. And as we refine those problems, we're not talking about a 6-month problem. We're just talking about where we are right now, trying to get over this hump in terms of turning the system on and working out some of the bugs. So, I mean, I certainly understand everyone's concerns. No one wants it more than me, trust me.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions for Todd? I do have one question, Todd.
Sure.
So we are now in February. So we are looking at year-end for next month, March. Okay. That means we have at least 2 months of backup in the new year, so January and February. So when do you expect that will totally catch up?
Without speaking for Amanda, you know, so to answer the question, there's 2 separate pieces here. One is absolutely closing the GRF 2024. That has nothing to do with NetSuite per se. That is all obviously in the legacy system. The challenge is that is the legacy system doesn't have anyone that's closing GRF other than Amanda. And that's why I speak to my limited resources, is I need all of her attention on the new NetSuite piece. All right. So to answer your question, there's 2 things. One, as soon as I get over some breathing room, we can focus some resources on getting the year-end number closed in GenArc, so we'll have GRF financials. going forward, the things that we're fixing and working on in terms of some of the data migration, some of the other areas, once we do get it all smoothed out, and you'll see there's just a couple linchpins we're working on right now. And as soon as that happens, we'll actually be able to close pretty quick. So we will certainly, my goal would be 100% to be 100% caught up through March financials in April with GRF, right? And have Q1 closed. Right now, she may kill me depending on where we actually are on that, and some things have to happen, but that would be my certain goal. And catching up on the January, February ones isn't as critical, not critical, it's not as time consuming as just trying to fix the actual, some of the underlying, systems.
So we're targeting by April.
My target would be certainly by, let's just say by end of April, by the board meeting in April, I'd like to have Q1 financials. I'm 100% in the new system produced.
For all January, February, and March.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that I wouldn't be able to roll out January. It's not like they're all at once. I mean, my plan would be to actually produce January statements, but I think from a board recommendation, a finance committee recommendation, we can certainly on the, if we look to the March board meeting and the March finance committee, I would think that my goal would certainly be able to look at, what we have February, depends on my staffing, but we certainly hope to look at January financials, and then in the April meeting, we'll be caught up.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
How about for the mutuals? How soon?
Same exact time.
Same, okay.
However, they're a little bit different because we're putting all our resources into making sure we can still provide interim 5,500. So instead of so if you actually look at the true, get into the code, things like a balance sheet are actually not in the 5,500 if you actually read through it. It's the check register, it's the cash, it's the bank recs, it's the aging reports, it's the general ledger report, right? So we're going to be able to, put those together so that all our attention is making sure that the boards, mutual boards, can still govern their thing accordingly. But that would be the same time frame house in terms of the financial decks and financial statements that have everything.
Todd, can you address timing of audits for mutuals and GRF?
Yeah, so we are at the very end of finishing all the 23s. There's a couple, including first, and a couple, and a lot of it speaks to some of the problems we've had in GenArc in terms of subledger balances that they've actually asked for more testing on. Those will all be here done pretty quickly. First and second are really the ones pending. We are on schedule for right now to hopefully get all the 2024 audits actually completed by April 30th. That was also critical, Jeff, so that we could push the GRF audit back because once again, same staff presenting the same information. So instead of mechanics wanting their requirement on April 30th, they pushed that back to June 30th so we can focus all our attention on connecting up and making sure that the mutual audits are on time this year and then move into the GRF audit as soon as we're complete.
So the statutory requirements for
the mutuals
is
April
April
30th.
30th. GRF's not under that same.
Correct. They were
That
only
gives us the
under
ability.
a requirement based on the bank wanting to see it based on the loans.
So our focus then is really proceeding forward with the mutuals by April 30th.
That is correct. 100%. Not even a question.
It is important to get the mutuals done first. We understand that.
Well, and it's also super important. I mean, I will say, as I said before, no one wants these audits more than me because we want to be able to close out GenArc. We want to be able to take any audit adjusting entries and put them in, right? So being behind on audits is I'm the one that wants them done even more than I guarantee you a board mutual. And a lot of them just want to make sure that they have the requirements and checked off, but the data super, super important to me because I want to actually finish closing out our legacy system, and that has to happen once I finish the audits of 24.
Yeah, I'm just a little concerned about the pressure kept building up, the more we delay, the pressure on the staff are not going to ease, right? So they're looking at have to close 1 month after another, all in the same time period. Right?
So I will be able to report next week on some of the HR stuff I'm trying to work on. Obviously, Bud's retirement was not expected. So I do, however, we have the other senior accountant position posted. The biggest challenge is obviously bringing in someone staffing that understands NetSuite is really not a difficult task. It's where we are right now and the perfect storm of moving from GenArc into NetSuite, because those people don't exist out there, right? And so it's taking, I'm not trying to make excuses, but it's like, how do I pull Amanda off what she's doing to train somebody? It just pushes everything further back. So there is a lot of, be kind to the finance team right now, even though there's a lot of deliverables on their plate.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, so we won't have the 6C to discuss then, since there's no report. Is that correct, Todd?
Correct.
Okay, and you want to talk about the project facility? project?
Sure, so the D report are the update on the existing projects that we have forward. So for the 2025 projects, we're still talking about the budget, it's not approved yet, so we haven't been tracking those yet. And because of the reasons that Todd explained, we don't have the closeout yet. What I can tell you, just generally speaking, is that none of the projects that we had, we were anticipating some projects coming in under budget. I think once we do the closeout, that it'll help us when we get our true and accurate cash flow with anticipated funds. So that's where we are with that.
Okay,
And I do wanna mention, just because there is activity, some of the projects in 2025 that we are actively working on are the pump replacement that actively started, the actual work on it. They closed out the generator project up at the front gate and then pickleball. So we are anticipating a March date for going for the planning commission. And so there's, work to kind of ready us to go for that review.
okay, and we will look at the capital project later.
Yes.
In items 7. Okay, good. And we'll talk about the MTF.
Yeah, so on the MTF, I probably should share my screen, because I know on the attachment, we didn't really finish the actual 2024 numbers. And I realized that the spreadsheet attached is not, the totals aren't right. So let me just share my screen here on the. Sorry, everybody. Okay, so I think first, let's just start with like recapping where we actually ended 24 compared to 23. So we actually generated $5,186,500 in fees compared to $5,375,000 in 2023. We basically dropped fee generating sales from 428 to 391. The 399 on the other side and the 430, those are, just so I think we started looking at what causes some of the exemption. Those are ones that are actually in installment payments. So the ones that are paying there's some special financing arrangements on. So if you look at the total, right, we're down basically 37 compared to the prior year on fee generating sales, we're down, pretty whole. So the $185,000, so obviously when we talk about the planning and trying to look forward to what we actually need, that number in terms of sales, it's always, as we talked in our committee, we have a couple things that we probably, as we move forward into March, one of the things we really truly control is what that fee is, right? We can't necessarily control, we can project as always want that that's what the sales number is, but we can't really know what that sales number is gonna be, right? We talked about 400, 375, we've talked about going on different places. So I think as we readdress this in Jeff, you might want to step in, but we're still in that upper 300, hopefully low 400. We don't know exactly, obviously, what this year will be. And so I think the question is, we left $185,000 on the table last year, and if we had taken the fees up $500 or $1,500 at 15,000, that number would have been positive, right? And it wouldn't have really affected the actual sales number. I think that's really what I think the finance committee has to get its head around, right? So do we want to leave $185,000 on the table? Absolutely not. Is there a way we can control that basically on variance sales by actually changing the membership fee? And now we're looking at, a 6-month notification process. So I think this committee, as we really, move into next month, and we have 2 months of these numbers, and we're looking at a change for 2026, really, for the 6-month notice. We're almost there, right? I mean, at the end of the year, certainly to Q4. I think that's where we should focus our conversation. Real quick, I'm going to keep my.
As you scroll over to 2025 numbers, and we see we have come up from last year where we had 23 sales and 17 fees. This year we had 26 sales and 23 fees. Obviously, we had a whole month with no rain, so that probably prompted a positive response. But we're still in some uncertain territories in terms of sales, and that is not unique to Rossmore. So keep that in mind. This is not a Rossmore exclusive issue, even though we are now predominantly on an all-cash basis. A lot of the challenge comes from people being able to sell property outside of Rossmore because of insurance challenges. But one of the things we want to do moving forward in not just raising the MTF fee, but really looking at some other dynamics within the revenue structure of the trust estate fund, and how does that 10-year window of projects look. We know that our main projects over the next 10 years, aside from the pickleball project, really is replacement of MOD. That was in our facilities master plan as the top project in that span. So what does that ultimately look like? How does the medical center property play into that, either as a future home of, or as a potential asset, or as a potential sale? How does that impact our ability to secure debt? All of those questions are things I think we need to answer as we move forward in looking at what ultimately the membership transfer fee should be in the next several months. So one of the things we'd like to do is bring forth next month a proposal of bringing on an advisor, a consultant that really could look at those various variables and help advise on what our opportunities are beyond Mechanics Bank and so forth, and really tackling larger scale projects in the future. So before you go and make adjustments to the membership transfer fee, we think we should look at it a little bit more holistically. But the pace of it still, it went up $500 in January, and will continue to do so. So we see we're already on our total fees last year were $233 for January, and they're $324 for January this year. So we're already picking up some steam. We don't know if that's a trend or if that's just a blip in the universe. Who knows? So we'll continue to monitor, but next month we will bring you either a request for proposals to take a look at, or some recommendations.
Questions on MTF? Okay, there's no trend yet, of course, and I think we'll touch on some estimates when we look at the capital project funding for this year. Okay, all right, thank you. Okay, and next week update.
All right. So.
I get to stop
Yeah, I
sharing.
just want to get this one first. I have to stop sharing this. It's funny when you get in these meetings, you only have one monitor. They're not. Right. So this morning, I'm actually pretty excited. From a Next Way update, we've talked so much about, here's the timeline, here's what we're trying to do, how we're getting through this implementation. And I wanted to actually kind of step back for a minute and let everyone in this committee actually see what we actually have. Because the pain we're experiencing right now, the pain on my team up there doing 2 jobs, the pain on Jeroen's team as we're trying to go through all these different pieces, we really are gonna have something pretty magical when we get through this, right? And so I just wanna take a minute here to, without going too deep, this is when I log in to NetSuite, this is actually the production environment that I log into. Huh? I don't know if I can. Only because it is kind of a set browser. I'm not sure if I can make that bigger. Okay. I don't think I can. So this, when I log into my production board, everyone will have a dashboard. I have not customized my dashboard yet because we're still, that is a little bit of a downstream piece. But what I want to really show you right now, where we are so different and where we're going to be. As you know, and we have created this fairly large relational 3-dimensional database that sits under this, and some of it is financial. And then you'll see as if I go forward to actually customize my dashboard, right? You'll see over here that I can have bank balance trends, I have KPIs, I can actually set up what I want to be my KPI indicators, right? So that when I get in every morning, I can look at things that are meaningful to me. One of the things I've always preached is the importance for cash flow. And I think I've been consistent since I've started that. And you'll see here right at the beginning is a cash flow tab. And so if I click on this is where we kind of some of the magic starts happening. I'm looking at Mutual 70 right now as an example, okay? So this is Mutual 70, this is their cash flow statement. We have trial balance data from 21 through 2020, well, we're still importing 2024. The current 2025, and we actually have it down to every single transactional level. So as we've talked about, when you open up a P&L, an income statement, a balance sheet, a cash flow, I have drill down capabilities all the way to basically what an actual invoice that's attached to that is, right? So pretty amazing. So if you look at this, and I'm just going to show you some of the really important things that I don't know how I can overstate the change in terms of being able to look at data, right? So in here, you will see, I'm just going to go down here, open up this more tab really quick. You can see here, I'm looking, this is actually 48, sorry. Let's go back to 70. So I'm with one click and a refresh, I can now look at 70. I can look at first, I could look at third consolidated, I could look at a project, I could look at GRF. I can within 2 seconds look at whatever I want to query and I can drill down in that query. Absolutely impossible to even take 15 minutes to open up a report in GRF and run it and download it. So this is a year, right? Now I say, well, you know what? I want to actually look at, all of us have prepared the budgets and I want to go down here and I want to say, you know what? I actually want to look at the accounting period. So this is monthly. I can hit accounting period. I can hit refresh. I'm now going to spread that cash flow immediately across all 12 months, all right? I can then look at this net cash line here and I can actually see change in the cash. I can see where their working capital drops. I can quickly calculate what their working capital would be over 1 or 2 or 3 years. I can change my date range to go from 23 to 25, from 21 to 24, and look at this as a consolidated cash flow to see what kind of cash use they have. Over here, on the right side, we're all dealing with fund management. Oh, I'm looking right now at all funds, but let's say I just want to look at just their operating fund. One click, I now can refresh this document. Now I'm going to look at that same information spread out by just their operating fund or the reserve fund, right? The metrics and capabilities that I have now and we have as an organization, they're not even in the same stratosphere, universe. And so I think it's super important that people kind of keep your eye on the prize, and we haven't had a chance really to share a lot of this really, it is incredible. And I know I get really excited because this makes my job fun. This is where I can start doing context. I can look at audits, I can look at problems, I can look where seasonality is different. I can look at reserve fund spending. I mean, it is truly remarkable. And the fact that I can drill down into it. Over here, very simple. Let's say I want to run, yeah, Mary?
How much data from GenArc is going to be available to use in the NetSuite?
So, well, right now, so it'll be, we're working on what we're gonna experiment with is how much we actually want. Right now, we're just having the trial balances
Yeah, that's
over.
what I
So
thought.
if I was to drill down in 23D, I'd see the journal entry. In 2025, it'll go all the way down to the individual invoice or transaction. The question will be how much of that history do we actually try to load from 24 into it? So and I would like to propose, we probably do more than not, but we're still making that decision. But obviously, we need to close 24 first. Real quick, so over here, within just a simple couple clicks, I can take this as a summary level, I can spin it down into a detailed level, right? And so then if you were to look at, let's go up here to financial, go back to my dashboard. I'm gonna be able to put over here like my navigating shortcuts, right? I can immediately look at AP, I can look at cash management. We go across the top, lease management is all the spaces. SquareWorks is our native suite app that does all of our advanced AP, optical sorting, scanning of all invoices now into the system, interfaces, billing customers. I can look at any type of vendors, purchase orders. We're gonna have purchase orders in the system, right? The payroll and HR. So if I now go to, let's just say real quick now, go to a recent report. Let's say I go to finance. System income statement, so detail. Let me collapse it so we don't show people. Let me just expand it a little bit. So now on this P&L, same period of time, all right, I can look at, for example, within the expenses, I want to look at landscaping and maintenance. I can, oops, sorry about that. I can open landscape and maintenance. I can open ground maintenance. I can see all the journal entries that actually make up that subtotal, right? In the new system, that will be drilled down into actual invoice. So anything that's happening in John T's world, I can see immediately, right? We're gonna be able to script it. I mean, it is so exciting and powerful. So I just want to, I don't want to go too much further. I just want to give you guys a little taste. This is all in here now. We actually have, we're talking about like implementing January. It's not that I don't have January, I actually have January data. It's just that we haven't finished the ability to close it, right? And if I wanted to go down here and change this period, right, to Q1, Q2, Q3, fiscal year, one click, and I can look at a quarter, I can look at a year. If I wanted to go to January 25, this is, all systems have their quirks. Hold on real quick. Let me change this first. So let's just say actually, just so you guys can see, 25 to 25, sorry. They have still kept me out of some of the production environment, rightfully so, we're no longer in the sandbox, so.
It is exciting to see how excited you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, compared to what I go through on a daily, you'll understand it. I'm tired of saying I can't do this thing.
You're 25 to 25 right now.
Yeah, that's okay, that's just January. So you can see like in January right now, this is second. I actually have a P&L for second, right? I can actually look at a cash flow. It's just not closed yet, right? It's just not finished. But that same stuff now, if I were to go in here, they only haven't given me rights yet. If I go in here, I can actually double click on any one of these charts and it would then show me the actual detail behind it. Once they let me play it.
That's a good demo.
Yeah.
Any questions for Todd?
Yeah, so you've talked in the past about analyzing variances and stuff.
Mhm.
So the analytics stuff, what kind of analytics can it do in terms
Yeah.
of the overall macro planning and forecasting?
Yeah, so it can do, so there's gonna be two separate levels of analytics. One is the analytics of the past, which we're gonna do some of that in here in NetSuite. And then obviously it's the analytics of the future and looking at future projections will come when we implement Workday adaptive planning for the budgeting cycle this year. So in April through June, we'll be turning on the adaptive planning piece. It'll take everything that's in here as a snapshot and pull it into Workday. And we'll use Workday as a reporting tool going for future looking. Because it has 1,000 view licenses, so we can actually roll that out to mutual boards versus a NetSuite license, which gets really expensive. Roy?
My question is very simple. Is each mutual can only look at their own data, not across the mutuals? Right?
What? Say yes.
Let's hope that.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at like our parent-child structure. So we have a lot of subsidiary parent-child relationships, right? And so, obviously, let's look at Third. Third is a unique individual, right? Because it has all the projects. So one of the things that I like to look at, like, it's great that they have individual projects within their financials, but what if I just wanted to look at their actual cash balance and I want to look at investment strategy? I can just click on their consolidated parent and look at all their cash balances in either operating reserve or brokerage, right? So I can see without trying to look at, currently in GenArc, there's no consolidated ability just to look at that. So, yeah.
So the mutual officials will have access to their own data if they want to drill down on the information. They
Yeah,
can
so we're
do
gonna work
much
with,
of
we're
what
gonna
we
work that
just-
out. Obviously, it's not gonna be in production where they can have any edit rights. We have probably had a few more licenses, but it'll most likely be limited to just the one person, like the treasurer, just from a cost standpoint. They would have just their mutual and they would have just view access where they could drill down, but they could drill down and see all the underlying baseline all the way down to the detail.
Okay, good. Any more questions? Now we'll move on then. So and the next one is the planning committee report. Do you want to merge it into your next item, which is we're talking at capital projects too?
So I wasn't there for the last planning committee, so other than capital, I don't know, be better for Cheryl or Jeff.
So we did a little bit of an update on the MOD kind of replacement project to restart that. We initially did a study of 3 different options for MOD and GRF administration. 1 being at the medical center, 2 being replace the MOD pretty much in place, and the 3rd being a new building on the MOD campus. So we talked about just those parameters in general and really leading into more of a discussion, like I just mentioned, of getting a consultant on that can help us understand our debt capacity and debt potential with or without the medical center property. So that will continue. That is a long-term kind of study and project. And then we did talk about the capital projects that have been before planning, finance, and the board. It is scheduled to go to the board for a second reading. And the main thing to kind of understand with that right now, where we're at without having closed and final numbers, is these are certainly projections. There is no project in here where we have just authority to go out and spend the money. These are projections. We always need to come back to the board for authorization for a contract. So even though you see $4 million for the pickleball project, that is not authorization for staff to go out and sign a contract and engage and spend $4 million. That needs to still be competitively bid and brought back to the board for approval. So one of the things to note is, as we consider approval of this plan, if you will, this projection, is that, it will be evolving really as we get competitive bids. But one project that planning did note that we will delay until we have more solid numbers is the golf bridge replacement. we'll continue the environmental work and the work with regulatory to make sure that we can get those permitted and out to bid, but actual construction would be delayed until such time as we know we have the funds available, with the goal of maintaining the 3.75 million in the reserve and an account balance of 2 million as our target. And we also have the reserve for the medical center funding. Turn it over to you to talk about specifics.
So Jeff gave a really good summary of basically the lens to look at this process and this tool through. And so we're all familiar with the list of projects, right? So, so those haven't changed, those have been consistent. We've made no changes again. The conversation was that we would defer the 600 for the build of the bridges into next year. And one of the reasons it's important to look at that, it's actually, I don't know that we put the deferral in this sheet, but after the last, or just before the last meeting, and again, I was remote out of the state, but White Walker noted that when we've been reporting miscellaneous revenue, when we projected it forward, I was doing it based on this year's actual, so it was my error. And so there's part of that is interest income, which can fluctuate and have changes. And so the recommendation was to reduce that down. So you'll see that's reduced down. What isn't reflected in here is offsetting and pushing this 600 for the bridges, because we didn't want to do it yet. Because again, these are planning documents, they're forecasting documents. It's still until you start getting into the projects, we don't know what the actual cash flow will be. Great examples of that are that when we estimate our pavement program, we do it based on the price if we are caught in the schedule of the worst time of year to do pavement programs. If we do it earlier in the year, the first quarter, that's actually the best pricing we're gonna get. The second best is when we typically been getting it, kind of the October. But if we have to do it kind of towards the summer months, we're gonna be paying the premium cost. But we've been turning savings because Mortaine's been very good about scheduling that at the most optimum times for the different vendors that are bidding. So those are things to keep in mind as we look at this, particularly because I don't want people to focus on the available cash dipping below the 200, because again, these are very dynamic numbers. Okay.
Yeah.
So what we're really looking for from the committee is just to confirm the recommendation from planning that we defer the bridge construction phase until later in the year when we can determine the revenue. This is based still on 400 sales. That is a variable that this committee will continue to discuss. It's based on the 13.5 for this year and 14 and moving up to 500. That is another variable that this committee will continue to discuss. So it's kind of recognizing that this is a planning tool. Nothing is released until we take the bid to the board for approval. And then, those are variables. We still have the goal of maintaining $2 million in the fund balance, and then the reserve of this year is 3.75 and next year is 4 million. So within those dynamics, we're looking to continue to progress towards getting the board to approve the budget, but with kind of those caveats that it'll be monitored throughout the year.
Sure.
So 2 questions. First, when we look at the planning, the 883,000 for the deposit reserve, why do we hold that aside?
You're talking about for the medical center?
Yes.
So that
I
was.
don't remember. I know it was explained.
Yeah, that was revenue. We received 1.4 million from when the facility was for sale and in escrow last time. The buyer pulled out and they ended up forfeiting their money in escrow to the tune of 1.4 million. The board has kept that as basically a set aside, and we use those funds anytime we're doing studies, evaluations, and so forth associated with MOD and the medical center
Any of the
property
studies and things that we do about that building or information,
are
so that's
funded
using
from
that
that
to
set aside.
basically understand what would be required. Okay, thank you. And the other what I'm understanding is while the planning committee has the capital projects out there and there is an amount that can be changed anytime there's, for instance, if the sales go down, if the anticipated 400 turns into 350, those projects are not approved without the cash to pay for them. Am I correct?
Right, we don't do all of these projects at one point in time either. Ann's group would could be a little overwhelmed. These are things that take place over the course of the entire year, and many will bridge into 2025 as well.
And they can be deferred if something happens that it's unfavorable for projections, right?
And that is what planning is really saying, focus first on delay of the bridge construction phase. So that's kind of the first thing that would take place. We anticipate having a solid number for the pickleball project in the coming months, once it goes out to bid. And then that will really trickle down to a number of other variables as well.
But that wouldn't determine when the project starts. It's just that it could start.
So, I would really commend Anne in terms of the planning and the way you're doing it over the long term. It's really giving us a big picture in terms of the possibilities. But Jeff, you talked earlier about the MTF fee, and you want to understand the overall revenue and the options for the medical center building and stuff. So when are we going to make the decision about the MTF fees? That's going to come in April or something? Because I know it has a 6-month lag, so it'll probably be affecting next year, not that much this year.
Yeah, so as Todd mentioned, I think our target is to really evaluate, do we go up to 14, do we go to 15 or something significantly different come 2026? And in lead up to that is where it would be valuable to have some input from a third-party consultant in terms of, you know, if we're looking at the replacement of MOD and that admin building, what are our options to fund that? You know, do we have, there's a lot of concern and questions about the medical center property, which holds the backing for the 3 existing loans. So one falls off in 2027. What is our ability to secure additional debt if that is our only real collateral of value to a bank? So there's a lot of different variables and questions we need to answer that will influence what capital we need to raise. If we sell the medical center and net out $10 to $12 million, how does that influence what we do next?
So what's the time frame for that kind of decision?
I think we need to bring to you some either options or a RFP into the board in the next month or so, and then get somebody on board soon after. So hopefully we'd have somebody on board towards April timeframe and start that evaluation so we can have it 6 months prior to 2025 or 2026.
Okay, thank you.
Scary, we're talking about 2026 already.
Right now. Other questions?
Can't wait to get to 2020s.
Adrian, let's hear you.
I find myself a little sort of concerned that it seems to sort of keep rolling on, and we never kind of come to a conclusion. And I realize that there's many things going on that cause that, but there's like the bridges across and the golf course. Some of those are eroding away. I mean, they will fail, and we need to deal with that, and we need to deal with that in a clearly defined time frame. And we keep sort of doing a study and going on, and it's like we need to set ourselves some goals here to say that we will actually reach some decisions about some of this stuff in the next few months. And so I hope that by bringing this consultant on, we're advocating doing it as quickly as possible so that by June or July, we really do have some firm ideas about what's feasible. And what we're going to be actually at 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I think we're in a good position right now to kind of bring all those strings together in terms of, you know, the medical center property, the main project of MOD. We'll start to learn final pricing about pickleball. So a lot of different variables will come together. We'll get a little bit more data on trends for home sales in 2025. It's a good time to have that consultant give us some guidance on what our various options are, and then bring it all together so we're ready to make pretty significant decisions leading into 26.
So, any questions for Jeff? I do have a question.
Yes.
So if you are proposing to bring a consultant in, we'll see that next month, and that means we'll be using some money from the $800-some thousand for that, right? So that was still our capital money, even though you put them in a different pot. Now, all of the project, like today, I want to understand the objective of the finance committees, what we need to deliver. Are you looking for the committee to recommend what is proposed by the staff, maybe with some, modifications, then present it to the board for approval of this year's capital project?
Yeah, so what we're looking for is a recommendation from the finance committee that pretty much validates the planning committee's recommendation of proceeding with the list of projects, with the caveat that we hold back decisions on construction phase of the golf bridges until we have more data about sales this year in revenue. And also kind of with the understanding that no project is released until we bring a bid to the board.
And with the project that the board approved the budget, it doesn't mean that we will spend all the money in
Exactly.
2025. So our cash picture is quite different. And even if the budget is approved, we could put a caveat on that, not to spend more than certain percentage in 2025 to just make sure we have a healthy cash balance. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
We want to make sure we maintain the reserve, and we want to maintain, or this would be a recommendation from the finance committee, that we maintain the reserve and that we keep the goal of a cash balance at the end of the year of $2 million.
Okay. With that said, I want to come back to the MTF projection of 400, knowing that last year we didn't make 400. And our 10-year trend is continue to decrease, by a certain percentage. Is that the number? I want to talk about that. Do we want to propose a different number for this budget purpose?
That has certainly been something that has been discussed here at the committee, and you've gone from 400, 375, 380. At this point, we have it at 400 for the projection, because we don't know kind of what the trend. If you look at our long-term history, we've always been above 400 except for this last year. Now it has dipped. Is that a ongoing trend, or are we in kind of a situation where we had a lot of impact from interest rates raising and ability to get mortgages and insurance impacts? So we don't really know where we're going to be going this year. So before we lower it and look at a impact to projections, I think we should probably get a bit of a trend, see where things are going this year, and also get some additional information from our opportunities.
So I think 375 is a more realistic number, and 400 is a aspiration, I think.
It's a which.
But it's a wild card, because there might be a recession hitting in the fall. Actually, I'm fully expecting it with the kind of situation going on right now. So I think we're not making that decision today because we're looking at the other big picture financial analysis and seeing what the MTF fee should be for 2026. But Jeff, I had another question about this. In terms of getting the financial consultant to make recommendations, the recommendations are really sensitive to the kind of financial goals we have in terms of capital budgeting for the next 5 years. Because if he's going to give us options, the options are very sensitive to, are we looking for more stability? Are we looking for a larger capital project? Are we looking for revenue? So a lot of these recommendations are really contingent on our long-term financial goals. So I'm hoping that before we hire that financial consultant, the finance committee can go into the terms of reference in terms of what the consultant has to consider and what our long-term goals are before he generates those options.
For today's purpose, do we want to delve into the MTF number or leave it as is, and knowing that that is the number, that could change?
Even though we didn't do 400 last year, we did 399, which is closer to.
That's like a shoe company, right? It's lower.
And what I like is we don't know the trend for this year. We can't feel the trend. And I would hate to judge this number or change it at a time when we don't have more information on the MTF. So my preference would be not to change it at this point.
I agree. I think leave it as it is right now.
Adrian and Nancy? Any thought on the MTF number for today's purpose?
No, I'm okay with it for today. That's fine.
I don't think there's any point in changing it at this point.
That sounds good. All right, are we ready to see we can make a recommendation? All right, Mary.
I move that we recommend that the Finance Committee recommend to the GRF Board the final approval of the 2025 capital projects budget based on the recommendation from the Planning Committee.
Second.
All right, and Jeff, will you call?
Absolutely. Lau?
Yes.
Byram? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Yes.
Thank you. Castillo?
Yes.
Singh?
Yes.
Stars just left, so Hurt?
Yes.
Okay, passes.
All right, good, thank you. No, this is not easy for everybody. All right, okay, we don't have any more new business, so if that's the case, the meeting is adjourned. Our next meeting is next month, the fourth month, Tuesday of the month. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alice.
Good job.
Thanks, Alice.
Thanks, Alice.
Great job.